Hi everybody, I'm Tony Wilson here with my good friend and co-host Adrian Wright, and this is The Supernatural and Beyond. We've been going over the Book of Enoch in preparation for our co-host new series actually on the Book of Enoch, and what we want to kind of do is to give you like a little preview as to what's going on, so that when we start talking about these things in the series, you'll already have a little bit of a background, so it should be a little bit more interesting.
Right.
So, want to start off with the various types of people, or should I say religious groups, amongst the Jews during that Second Temple period, which was the time when Yeshua, Jesus, was actually walking the face of the earth. Two of the most famous groups are the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
Right.
And some of these were people that were rabbis that were really fervent about who they worshiped, how they worshiped from the Torah, the instructions given from the temple. However, there were other groups that were more politically minded. That some of the kings and the rulers, especially Rome, would appoint certain priests, rabbis, and so forth that were under their control to keep the Jews under control. So it's pretty much like it is today.
Right.
You know, it's just a lot of political shenanigans going on instead of just actually following what the Torah has taught and what the teachings of the rabbis had taught. Now, one interesting group saw all of this and said, we don't want to get involved in this nonsense. We're going to do what our forefathers did. And that was the community at Qumran. This is where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. This is also where we find the Book of Enoch. In amongst those, so that they're all together, so they're all there at the same time period, there were a few other books that were there. And I just kind of want to go over some of those. One was the Book of Giants. Now, why was the Book of Giants so important? Well, without going into all the details, the Book of Giants shows that what was in the original scriptures, and they talk about giants in the land, it was an actual documentation of the activities of the giants.
From the giants' perspective.
From the giants.
From what I've read. I haven't read the whole text, but I've read parts of it. So from their perspective and what was going on with them. And what's interesting about the Book of Giants is they kind of had a prophecy about that their time was coming to an end.
Oh yeah. When we go back to when the sons of God, B'nai Ha Elohim, the watchers, that the celestial beings that had that title, and it was a title like ambassador or mayor or police officer. It was a title. They had certain responsibilities, and they rebelled against that.
They fell.
So consequently, judgment came upon them, and that was a part of the flood. Because they mated with the daughters of man, either sexually.
Or, I believe sexually.
I believe sexually too, as well as genetic engineering. It's not anything new. It's been done before.
You know? And I think we talked about this in one of our other YouTube videos about like giants and fallen angels and stuff, and we talked briefly on it too. But what I had noticed is, reading Enoch, reading the Book of the Giants, reading, parts of them, Book of Jubilees, and I think Jasher might have talked on it a little bit too. It said that they went into the daughters of men, and they formed the giants. But then there's also other references that they corrupted the birds of the air, the beast of the earth, and they corrupted like the animals of the fields. So you know how like we look back at the fossil records and we see like dinosaurs, and people get like, they talk about evolution, like this dinosaur evolved into this animal, and this flying dinosaur evolved into this bird. What I think had happened was, these watchers, the fallen watchers that entered the daughters of man and made that covenant on Mount Hermon. We talked about Mount Hermon in another video too.
Yes, we did.
And what had happened was, I believe that's where the dinosaurs came from, because the giants started polluting the land. They started getting rid of all the resources. They started eating men, and the cries of men went up to heaven.
The giants, yeah.
And blood filled the earth. And the beast of the earth, the dinosaurs and the other animals that were corrupted by these watchers, whether it was genetic engineering or whether it was, they actually had sex with them and produced like giant beasts, which would have been the dinosaurs, because a lot of them were carnivores. They ate meat. Not all of them. Some of them were plants, but they were these big beastly animals, and that's why maybe where we get evolution from is because they polluted the bird, and then you got like the pterodactyl, or they polluted this animal, and then you get this dinosaur. And that's also why when you read Genesis that God brought the animals to Noah 2 by 2, because Noah couldn't go out and collect the animals because some of them had been polluted from these corrupt and evil watcher beings.
Yeah, well, that's one of those things that I believe it was both.
Yeah, genetic engineering,
and that's why we're seeing what we call chimeras.
Okay.
We see pictures of, you say, the body of a lion, the head of a man, the wings of an eagle, and things snake of a tail of the snake for the tail. Wow, yeah. Say that
tongue
fast.
Twister. Yeah,
Yeah,
I couldn't say it. Thank you,
fast.
Tony, because I'd have butchered it.
So they're talking about doing these things now. They're talking about human cloning. I've seen several movies. I work at home a week. I'm back at the office for a week. And, I flip the dials and I see all of these movies about human cloning.
Yeah. In science, like where they're trying to splice animals and do all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I've seen that too. And what's interesting and about Enoch and about the end time generations is Jesus made a reference. It's always important to look at like, what does Jesus say? And Jesus said in the end times will be such as the days of Noah. And in these days of Noah, just before the flood, like God caused this flood because mankind had been corrupted. Well, the daughters of man from the watchers coming in, making the giants, and then corrupting the beasts or the animals of the earth. And it's just really interesting how that all ties together. And this, what's going on now, like with the movies, I believe is soft disclosure. How they're trying to like make it okay little by little. And then, hey, we were able to do all this stuff with these animals and the DNA. And it's just very interesting because, we talked about, are we alone in the universe? And we mentioned stuff about UFOs and what we thought UFOs were, how they were other entities from the fallen race and all this. And then the government comes out saying, oh, yeah, there's unidentified flying objects that we don't know about. And all the news stories covered it. Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and MSNBC, all those news sources, whatever your news sources are that you prefer, it's all over.
Yeah, it's all over there, and that's because from the beginning, when Yahweh God Elohim created the heavens and the earth and all the celestial beings, and then all the things that have subsequently happened, one of the things that I find in my research is the date 1945.
Okay.
That was right around, it was around World War II.
Right.
And it's amazing how all of these countries around the world all kind of came into the same technology. They were all had a Luciferian group, the dark side, the deep state, whatever you want to call it. They were all active at the same time. And what I think happened was, from a spiritual perspective, from the unseen realm, there was a battle of the gods yet again.
Little g for those gods.
Yeah, little g for those gods.
Not the real God.
Yeah, well,
the false gods.
The false.
Sorry to interrupt, but
I don't. So what wound up happening? There was a battle of the gods.
Yes.
And they got their human counterparts involved, consequently bringing a world war. Now, remember, there was the First World War.
Right.
Then there was the Second World War. But the unique distinction was at the end of the technology, the end of the Second World War brought about the atomic age, shortly thereafter, Roswell, and then this whole UFO alien crave that's been going on to this very day. They've been feeding us a steady diet. We've done a series on disclosure.
Disclosure, yep.
And it's been around for a very, very, very long time. And from what I can see, it's all from these fallen gods. Now, let me go back to the God part. You know, there's a big G for Yahweh, God, Elohim, and there's a little g for all the other gods that are
wannabes
out there. Yeah. And what I have discovered is, and it's in Job, it's in Daniel, it's all throughout the scriptures, where it says that when Yahweh God Elohim created, everything is of himself.
Right.
So consequently, these are gods. They are Elohims.
Okay.
So consequently, when from a Judeo-Christian perspective, we always try to like to separate, you know, well, these are the little gods, and this is the original, this is the creator. That's why I have a tendency to say the creator, referring to the big G.
Yeah.
And then I just say
Yahweh.
gods for all the others that are out there. Because even humankind was created in Elohim's image and likeness.
Right.
We are the closest to him that ever existed.
Right.
So just to throw that out there, all these celestial beings are gods, Elohim. But there is only one Elohim, the creator.
Wow. So my research, that's kind of interesting, because I always kind of referred to them as like the angel, the celestial beings being like the angels.
That's one of the names that's commonly used for them.
So would that fall under your category as the little gods?
Yes,
Like,
it would definitely. And it's just a matter of language.
Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, it's just a matter of language.
Yeah, because I always refer to them as like the fallen angels, or angels, holy angels, fallen angels. And I like how you said that. And earlier we were talking about like you mentioned like the animals that had like a lion head and like the face of a bear. And when you said that, I immediately thought of the scripture in Ezekiel and also Revelation.
I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah, how they saw the living beings like in the heavenly realm. And what I've always found interesting is like Lucifer, the devil, he's always trying to copycat God.
Mimic, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mimic, copycat. And,
yes.
You know, it's never as good, right? Like, it's never as good as what the creator made. But I was wondering about, like, when they make those beasts and they merge the DNA either by sex or genetic engineering, I wonder if he's trying to copycat those. They're called living creatures in heaven, like John saw them and Ezekiel saw them, and I just find that very interesting. And I think like Enoch has a foundation for us kind of discovering this truth, and I think it's very important to look at a lot of these extra biblical texts.
Yeah, it's necessary, because without it, you can't fully understand what was going on back in the time and what is going to happen in the future.
Yeah. And, you know, like the first chapter of Enoch, those first few verses in Enoch, we talked about it earlier too. Like, you know, those books were sealed. These mysteries are sealed for the end time generations. And we've talked about it before. And I think you believe it more than I do, honestly, that like now we're living in those end times, but with this whole quarantine situation and this whole, you know, pandemic with the coronavirus and, you know, now not being able to go into the store without wearing a mask on your face, like I'm starting to see it more like we are right there in those end time generations. And it's just like we want to be aware and we want to be paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah, we have to.
And just look for those signs of the end times. So,
absolutely.
It's like the Messiah said with the end times, you know, such will be as the times of Noah.
Yes, as in the days of Noah, so shall the end times be. Yes.
Yeah. So we just want to encourage you guys to follow us at the Supernatural and Beyond. Leave a like, a comment. You know, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And we'll see you next time at the Supernatural and Beyond.